Hey all, it's Robin. Welcome back to my channel. So today we are doing some 5-star predictions. So we are going to start with wrapping up my 5-star predictions for 2021, and then we are going to get into my 5-star predictions for 2022. So I have officially finished all of my 5-star predictions for 2021. I chose 10 for this year, and I just read the last one, and this year was a bit of a mixed bag, mixed success. I had a couple that were straight up 5 stars, absolutely loved, and I had a couple that I actually kind of hated. So full range, full spectrum here. Let's start with the wrap up, and then we will do the new predictions at the end. I will link timestamps down below if you just want to jump around. I will also list out like the books and stuff that I'm talking about. So if there's a specific book you want to know more about, there will be links down below, all of that stuff. So let's just get right into the wrap up. I have my 2021 bullet journal thing off to the side here that I did not keep up with, but I'm just going to go through, and unfortunately we're starting with the biggest disappointment, and that is When Night Breaks by Janella Angelis. This is the second and final book in the Kingdom of Cards duet. Yeah, Kingdom of Cards duet. And I gave this 2 stars, unfortunately. I absolutely loved the first book, Where Dreams Descend. I gave that 4.5 stars. And this one was a massive disappointment. So book 1 follows a magician, a female magician, and she works at this kind of like hidden house in the woods, and she is the star performer there. She always dreams of like going out into the world and doing more, but she's kind of trapped in this house. And so one day she flees the house and she makes a dash for this town that she could see from her window. And when she reaches the gates, she is able to escape into this town. And when she's in this town, she enters into a magician's competition, and it kind of starts to unravel all of the secrets of the world and the people and her magic and her past and all these things. And you end the first book on this kind of like big battle scene and this big cliffhanger, and book 2 picks up directly after that. And I thought that there were good like structural elements in here. Like the story itself, I liked the story duet as a whole. I think that like it had a good plan. I think it had good everything. But in execution in book 2, it was just such a mess. And like I don't know if this has anything to do with like it being when it was published or anything like that, but I feel like this second book just did not get the love that it needed in editing. And because of that, there were so many like straight up repeated moments in here. Like there were sentences that were repeated like right after one another. And like I posted about this on my Instagram because I was just very confused. Like a sentence would be repeated, and then there would be like 4 sentences, and then it would be repeated again. And I was just like, why are we saying the exact same sentence 4 sentences apart? And this happened multiple times. And so there were just so many moments where I was like, where was the editing process for this book? Like, what happened? Because book 1 was written so beautifully, and like the world was lush and the characters were wonderful. And book 2 just did not have that same feeling at all. Like it was very stinted and like repetitive, and just like the character elements that were developed in book 1 were essentially thrown out the window, and like we just got like it was all for naught. Like I don't know what happened with this book. It did not pan out for me at all. I am still interested in picking up more by this author since I did love book 1 so much. And like I said, the framework was there for the story, but then in execution, it just didn't work out. I also didn't love the ending. It didn't feel wrapped up. It didn't feel complete. I wasn't a big fan. So unfortunately this was a 2 star. So we're starting off on a poor note. The next book is Into the Heartless Wood by Joanna Ruth Mayer, and this one I did give 5 stars. This was the first book that I read, one of the first books I read this year, and the first book that I read off of this list for this year, and I adored this book. This is a YA fantasy, and you are following this character who is an astronomer's son, and he lives on the edge of this like haunted magical forest, and no one is supposed to go into the forest because the forest is occupied, I guess, by this like evil force and her daughters, who are these like tree sirens. And once you go into the woods, no one ever comes back. But the son has to go into the woods, and while he is there, he meets one of the evil tree sirens, and he discovers that the sirens might not be everything that people have made them out to be. This book explores a lot of different things throughout here. There is kind of this exploration of what it means to be human, what it means to be a good person. There is kind of this gray morality explored throughout here because the tree siren is grappling with honoring her family, as well as what she thinks is right, as well as her growing feelings for this human boy. And this human boy is grappling with his feelings for this tree siren and his feelings about this war and this battle against the woods. And it's just is beautifully written. Oh my God, the prose in here is stunning. And it's told in this really cool way because you're following from dual perspectives. So you get the hero, the perspective, as well as this tree siren. And since the siren is a monster, she does not speak in like complete sentences. She just has these like little phrases that she says, and it's stinted sentences and things like that. It's wonderful. I loved the ending in here. Just I adored this book. 5 stars. Next up is Lost in the Neverwoods by Aiden Thomas, and I put this one on this list because I gave Cemetery Boys 5 stars last year, and that was one of my favorite books of 2019. Unfortunately, this one didn't quite hit that mark. I generously gave this one 3.5 stars. It's probably more of like a 3-star enjoyment, but there are some really good themes and things in here, things that I really liked that Aiden Thomas did. I still really love their writing, so I gave it an extra half star. This is a Peter Pan retelling, and in this book, you are following Wendy, who I think was 5 years. Yeah, 5 years ago, Wendy went into the woods with her brothers, and she returned, but her brothers never did, and she has no memories of what happened in the woods during that time. And she is kind of grieving the loss of her brothers still, and it's kind of hurt her family quite a bit because no one has any idea. No one's been able to find them. Then in the present timeline, children are now going missing again into these dark woods. And there is a new person in town named Peter, and the two of them work together to try and save the children and possibly uncover what happened to her brothers. This had some of the cringiest dialogue ever. From what I know, this was actually Aiden Thomas's debut, and Cemetery Boys was their sophomore novel, and the publisher decided that Cemetery Boys was a better book to debut with because it was a better representation of them as an author, and so they debuted with Cemetery Boys instead of Lost in the Neverwoods. And this definitely felt more like a debut than Cemetery Boys, so that do keep that in mind. This is not their sophomore novel. They were just published out of order. I like I said, I really liked the themes in here that were explored. Those were beautiful. I just did not love some of the like dialogue and the characters and things like that. So middle of the road. Next up is another 3.5 star book, and that was The Dead in the Dark by Courtney Gold. This one is a really fun, spooky YA thriller, and this one you are following a heroine who is moving to this small town in Oregon with her 2 dads, and her fathers are ghost hunters, and they have been staking out this small town for a while, and they are finally bringing her there. She doesn't really want to be in the small town. She is sick of traveling. She really wants to put down roots and just kind of like live a normal life. While she is there, she kind of gets wrapped up into this haunted paranormal town. She meets this girl who is the daughter of kind of like the queen bee of the town. This girl has recently lost her boyfriend. The two of them team up to uncover what is really happening in this town, because people are going missing and mysterious dark things are happening into the woods. They start seeing some ghosts, maybe. And the two of them team up and they try to uncover everything that's happening and they form a relationship. And this had elements that I absolutely loved. Like the spooky elements in here were really, really spooky. Like I loved the paranormal aspects of this. It had great social commentary. It had a great small town. Like this really gives you that like creepy small town vibe where like everyone's kind of keeping secrets and no one's really like acknowledging the outside world. That was all really great, but I thought it was slightly underdeveloped. The romance is just kind of like, it just kind of happens at one point, and I wanted more from it. I wanted more from some of the familial relationships. It was mostly the relationships in here that I wanted more from them. I wanted more exploration. It is, I mean, a 300 page. It's a pretty like average size book. So I mean, how much how much more could really be backed in here without like it being a huge chunky book? But I wanted more from this book. But it was still a really good spooky story, and I definitely will be picking up more from this author in the future. Next on the list was Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune, and I gave this one 5 stars. This was magical and wonderful and everything I wanted and love in TJ Klune books. This made me laugh. It made me cry my dang eyes out. This is how do I want to describe this book? This book is a story on grief. I hesitate to call this a romance. It does have a romance in it, but this book is really, really heavy. So you're following this main character who dies right at the beginning of the book, and he meets his reaper, who is this young woman who takes him to this magical, whimsical tea shop. And there he meets Hugo, who is the man that is going to help him cross over. And while he's at this tea shop, he kind of develops this found family with Hugo and his reaper and Hugo's ghost father, who is also living at this magical tea shop. And you are watching all of them kind of come together and form this magical bond and learn more about what they want out of life and what it means to be a person and a good person and dealing with their own griefs. And it's just, there's mental health representation in here. TJ Klune always kills it with the found family aspect. The found family in here was so sweet. There are lots of really, really heavy depictions of grief in here, but they are mixed in with these really funny and lighthearted and heartwarming scenes. There is a seance scene in here that had me cackling. And then the ending of this book it really got me. I cried so many times throughout this book. Definitely have your tissues handy. Definitely check out the trigger warnings and things like that for this book, because there are definitely a lot of them. TJ Klune, from what I understand, wrote this book while he was grieving a pretty dark loss, and you can feel it. You can feel it in this book, but it was so beautifully written. Absolutely adore this. TJ Klune is just one of my favorites. Next is Small Favors by Erin A. Craig. Definitely a much different book. I put this one on the list because I absolutely loved House of Salt and Sorrows. I didn't love this one quite as much, and that seems to be an unpopular opinion. It seems like everybody adores this book. I don't know if it had to do with when I read it or what, but I gave this one 3 stars. I thought it was dark and creepy, but just not my favorite. I didn't realize it until much later, but apparently this is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling, which makes sense. Now that I know that, yes, that's accurate. But you are following this really creepy small town, and you are following a main character named Ellery. And Ellery's family is a family of beekeepers. Ellery's father and brother go into the woods to get supplies, and their caravan is attacked and destroyed, and nobody returns until her brother comes fleeing out of the woods, and they send a search party out, and they find the party that has been destroyed, essentially killed, murdered, destroyed. And they don't know if there are animals in the woods. They don't know if there are monsters in the woods, but it kind of kicks off this event of like this small town imploding in on itself. And everyone is very suspicious, and they don't know if it is somebody in the town that's doing something or if they are all trapped and there's monsters. And then there are some new people to town, and that causes more drama. I don't want to say too much more than that because there's some twists. There are some wild twists in here. But essentially, you're watching this small town slowly unravel. That is the majority of this. And I think that is kind of what hindered my enjoyment, because there isn't much character development and plot in here. You were just kind of on the outside watching this small town slowly unravel. And it's very dark. It's very creepy. It is super atmospheric. There are some really, really good twists and stuff in here. I am a very character driven reader. And so I need to kind of like be in my characters' heads and like really get to know them. And that's not what this is. This is very much an outsider like looking in at this small town. There are some really cool themes and discussions and twists and things in here. It was a fun read. It wasn't one of my favorite books of all time. So 3 stars. The next book, however, is a new favorite of all time, and that is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Emily Henry has definitely solidified herself as an all-time favorite romance author for me. I adored this book. I think I loved this one even more than Beach Read somehow. I don't know how, because I loved Beach Read, but this is definitely going to be possibly maybe my favorite book of 2021. I am not sure yet. I haven't even started looking, but this is definitely high up on the list. This is a friends to lovers second chance romance, and you are following these 2 characters who are kind of total opposites, but they have been best friends since college, and they take all of these trips together. The 2 of them start to develop some feelings. During one of their trips, they have something happens and they have this falling out. And now in present day, it has been a few years, 2 years, since they have taken a trip or really seen each other or spoken at all. They decide to take one final trip together to try and fix their relationship. And feelings arise, and this was so good. This is probably my favorite friends to lovers romance I've ever read. It is not my favorite trope. I am usually just not I don't usually get on board with the fact that these people have been just friends for so long, but the mutual pining in here was just so good, and their reason for being friends for so long and things like that. Everything about this worked for me. I loved the banter. Emily Henry's writing is so witty and sharp, and I adored this. Definitely a favorite. 5 stars. Highly, highly recommend. Next up is Down Comes the Night by Allison Saft, and this one I gave 4 stars, but I think it's more like a 3.5. This is a YA fantasy, gothic fantasy, I guess, and this book isn't what it was really pitched as, but I still enjoyed it. So this was really pitched as like this enemies to lovers gothic story of these 2 people stuck in this like haunted house. That's not really what this is. This was far more fantastical than I thought it was going to be, and way less haunted. But you're following this heroine who is dismissed by the queen, and she's sent to this convent because she uses her magic kind of recklessly. And in order to try and get her place back in the court and on the queen's good side, she decides that she is going to go to this neutral third-party territory after somebody asks her to come and heal somebody at this haunted mansion. So she goes to this neutral territory, to this mansion, to try and sway this other territory to their side to help save their kingdom or whatever. And when she gets there, she discovers that the person that she's supposed to heal is from the warring kingdom. Not only that, but he is like the big bad guy that they all fear from that kingdom. The 2 of them have to team up, possibly take down some stuff in this haunted mansion. I don't want to spoil anything. This is less gothic and haunted than I thought it was going to be, than I wanted it to be, but it's more fantastical. This had really good atmosphere, and the mansion itself was really dark and eerie and creepy. This had some good romance elements in it. This had some good fantastical elements in it. my big gripe with this book was that it didn't take anything far enough. So like it didn't go dark enough, and it didn't go romance enough, and it didn't go gothic enough. And like everything, it would start to go there and then it would cut it off, and it'd be like, no, I want you to do more with that. And so I will definitely have my eye out on this author, because I liked so much about this book, and it was just everything that it would do, it'd be like, I want you to take that and like dial it up more. And so I'm excited to see where this author goes from here, because this is a debut book. And so I liked everything about this. I just wanted more. I wanted this book to be darker and more gothic and more fantastical and more romance, because like everything felt like it was almost there and just like held back. And I want to see what Allison Saft does next. So this one I think I'm officially going to say a 3.5. Next up is These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan. I put this one on the list because I adore Lexi Ryan. I own, I don't know if you can see them, but I have a whole bunch of Lexi Ryan books right here. I love her romances. Lexi Ryan is an adult romance author, and this was her first YA story. And this was a very like classic-esque YA fantasy. And I really love this. I give this 4 stars. This didn't necessarily do anything like wild and unique, but it was just so much fun. You are following this main character, Bree, who her sister is taken by the Fae or sold to the Fae. And so she decides that she is going to make a bargain, and she is going to go to the Fae court and try to get her sister back. But when she gets there, she gets wrapped up in the Fae court. She makes a deal with this guy that she doesn't really know. She has kind of a love triangle. There are secrets and plotting and, Fae magic and all this stuff. It's a lot of fun. You have all of the classic Fae things. You have the Seelie and Unseelie court. You have kind of like a Cinderella-esque plot in here with like a ball and a marriage scheme. It was really good. Like I said, this is super tropey. There's a love triangle. There's all of those like classic Fae things in here. But it was so much fun. It was so good. I love Lexi Ryan's writing. It is so bingeable, and it's just, I gobbled this story right up. I absolutely loved it. I cannot wait for the sequel. I think the sequel comes out mid 2022. Can't wait for it. Definitely a good one. Gave this one 4 stars. And then lastly, ending on another 5-star is Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. This is book 2 in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I don't remember a ton about this. I read this really early in the year. This is probably my favorite YA mystery series of all time. You are following Pip, who is a high school student in book 1. And she decides that for her senior project, she is going to try and solve her town's cold case. And while she does that, she uncovers a lot of dark secrets about her small town and all the people in her small town and in her life. And in this book, you are following the same characters, but a whole new mystery. So she solves the mystery in book 1. And in this book, someone has gone missing, I believe. Yeah, someone she knows has gone missing. And despite her reservations, because she never really wanted to solve another mystery again after what happened in book 1, she decides to help out because no one else is willing to help out. And in this book, you are watching her not only solve this mystery, but start to grapple with the mental health and like physical impacts of solving these cold cases that they have on her. She is only, I think she's like 18 or 19, and you're kind of like watching her struggle with learning all of these things, hearing all of these dark stories, learning about all of these terrible things that people she knows has done, and getting herself into dangerous situations, both mentally and physically. And it's just, I love the way that crime and stuff is explored in the series. I still need to read book 3, which I do have on my phone. Still need to read it. The audiobooks for these are so fantastic. They're a full cast. There's sound effects and all kinds of cool things in here. So 5 out of 5 stars. Love this series. Okay, so that is it for my wrap up. We ended up with what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-star books. So 4 out of 10. I mean, that's not great. It's not great, but I mean, it's not too bad. I'm pretty proud of that. So for 2022, I decided to go with 12 books for my 5-star predictions because I want to do monthly reading vlogs. I don't know if I am going to do like one a month for 12 months or if I'm going to pair these up or how I'm going to do this, but I do want to vlog me reading these 5-star predictions. And then the way that I split this up is I did 6 books that are sequels and 6 books that are standalones. I wanted to avoid doing too many sequels since I do want to vlog these. I figured it's going to be harder to watch vlogs of me reading sequels because if you haven't read book 1, like, how much do you care about me reading a sequel? So I split them up, and then for most of the sequels, they are like standalone sequel romances sort of deals. There's only a couple of like straight up sequels in here. So let's just get right into the list, starting with the sequels. First up is Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. This is going to be one of the first books that I read in 2022 because it comes out very early in 2022. This is the sequel to It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. And in this book, you are following the sister who we met in book 1. And this is her romance with the best friend of the hero from book 1. I don't want to go too much into the synopsis because I personally don't want to read too much about the synopsis. But I've heard that this one is even better than It Happened One Summer. And It Happened One Summer is one of my favorite books of the whole year. So I am so excited. I cannot wait. Cannot wait for this book. Next up is The League of Gentlewomen Witches, which is the sequel to The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels, which was also a favorite book this year. This I gave 5 stars. It is this wild combination of historical romance and fantasy. You are following these Victorian pirates who fly flying houses. It is just so fun and witty and different and quirky, and I know nothing about this sequel. Literally nothing. I don't know who the heroine is. I don't know who it follows. I don't know if we are now following witches instead of pirates. I know nothing. I just know that I loved book 1 so much that I immediately requested book 2. It is sitting on my Kindle, and I want to read it as soon as I can. Book number 3 is Beautiful Nightmares by KJ Sutton. This is book 4 in the Fortune is Sworn series. This is one of the ones that is like a straight sequel. So this is one that I will probably pair up with something else since like this will be hard for me to vlog without it being spoilery. But this is an new adult fantasy romance series, and it is following kind of like a fae world. So you're kind of classic fae world, but our main character Fortuna is a nightmare, and she is able to go into people's heads and discover their greatest fear and then harm them with it. This is a really complex world with tons of characters and politicking, and I don't want to go too much into the plot at this point since we're 4 books in, but I am so excited for this 4th book. I've been following Kelsey over on Instagram as she is like finishing up this final book, and she has talked about how this is possibly her favorite and how complex this story and this world has gotten beyond what she had originally planned for. And I am so excited to get into this final book. This book or this series is really dark and gritty, and just I'm obsessed with the love triangle. Is it a love triangle? I don't even know. I'm really excited for this 4th book. Next on this list is one of my least favorite covers of all time. It is disgusting. It is the sequel to A Dark and Hollow Star by Ashley Shuttleworth, and that is A Cruel and Faded Light. Let's just take a moment to mourn the travesty that is this book cover. Moment of silence. Like I said, it is the sequel to A Dark and Hollow Star, which I gave 5 stars. I absolutely loved that book. It is set in Toronto in our world, but you are following all of these different fae who come from all different backgrounds. We're following kind of this like big, powerful, this like fallen fae, as well as some royal fae, as well as like a part fae. So you're following all these different people across all these different backgrounds, and they kind of have to come together to try and solve the mystery of who is killing the half fae. And they uncover some dark stuff. It was a really, really fun, complex world. I really liked it. I know it was not everyone's favorite. There are a lot of characters and a lot of perspectives and a lot of moving parts. I just had such a fun time with that first book. And I'm really excited to read the sequel and see where we go from here. This cover has me really nervous because it is so ugly. So I'm scared. I'm scared. But it's still on this 5-star prediction because book 1 was 5 stars, and I still have high hopes that despite this tragedy, the story inside will be wonderful. Next up is the sequel to A Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall, and that is Husband Material. I know literally nothing about this book other than the fact that it is the sequel to Boyfriend Material. Boyfriend Material was one of my favorite books of last year, and I am so excited that we are getting more from Luke and Oliver. They are just, I love them. I love them so much. That's it. That's all I have to say about it. It's a sequel. I'm excited about it. And then the last sequel on this list is the follow-up to The Love Hypothesis, and that is Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. I don't know yet how connected these two books are. As far as I can tell from the synopsis, they are not that connected, but I do believe that they are going to be considered like a standalone series. So I think that this is technically standalone. It's just in the same universe. But this is another STEM romance, and I believe in this one we are following a scientist who has to work with someone at NASA. They have an enemies to lovers romance. That's all I really know about it. There is no like cover, there's no set synopsis or anything yet. I just found a pitch of this. I believe that it is set to come out in summer at some point. So I'm really, really excited about this one. Hopefully it does come out in 2022. It doesn't get pushed back. Otherwise that's going to throw off all of my plans. But I'm really excited for another Ellie Hazelwood book. I loved The Love Hypothesis so much, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait for more STEM romances from her. So into the standalones. First up is The Roughest Draft by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Broca. I do not know why I struggle so much with that author duo. This is that author duo's first adult romance. I believe in this book we are following authors who were a writing duo. Their books had huge success, but they end up having this big falling out. And I think they have to come back together for some reason, and they are rekindling their romance. So second chance romance, enemies to lovers. I'm really excited about it. I have always been interested in this author duo, but I am not a YA romance reader. So I'm really excited that they're writing an adult romance. I'm excited to see how we feel about it. Next up is the new Casey McQuiston book, and that is I Kissed Sarah Wheeler. This is Casey McQuiston's first book, a YA book, and I love how I just said that I don't read YA romance, and then I put a YA romance on my 5-star predictions list. Literally the only reason this book is on here is because it is Casey McQuiston. I have given all of their books 5 stars, and despite the fact that I do not normally read YA romance, I trust them. I trust them completely. So all I really know about this is you are following a main character who has a mystery kiss from Sarah Wheeler, and then Sarah Wheeler disappears. And so our main character teams up with somebody to try and find Sarah, and I believe those two have a romance. I believe this is a sapphic YA romance. That's literally all I know about it. I don't know if this is going to be like a mystery. I don't know if it's a straight up romance. I don't want to dive too much into it just because I don't typically read this type of story. I kind of want to go in not knowing a whole lot so I can just kind of experience it. I really love Casey McQuiston's writing, so I trust them. Hopefully this one works for me. Next up is A Wilderness of Stars by Shay Earnshaw. This is a YA fantasy. I put all of Shay Earnshaw's books on my 5-star predictions. I love Shay Earnshaw's writing so much, so I will forever be putting them on my 5-star predictions list. So this does have a synopsis. It says, a mysterious illness cursing the land forces a teen girl astronomer to venture across the wilderness in search of the star's message that will hopefully save them all. It sounds like it's going to be a YA sci-fi fantasy, which is not my typical genre, but I love Shay Earnshaw's writing. Their writing is so magical and so beautiful and lush and vivid, and they always incorporate these really magical like forest settings into everything, which is one of my favorite things, which is part of the reason why I loved Into the Heartless Wood so much. So absolutely, absolutely think that one will be 5 stars. Next up is TJ Klune, because all of his books are 5 stars for me, and that is In the Lives of Puppets, which is a Pinocchio retelling, which I'm mildly terrified for because I don't know how that's going to work, but I'm excited about it. You know what? If anyone could pull off a Pinocchio retelling, it's TJ Klune. Definitely picking this one up in 2022. Can't wait. Again, hopefully this one actually releases in 2022 and doesn't get pushed back, but it is on my list of 5-star predictions. Next up is the new Emily Henry, and that is Book Lovers. I don't think I need to talk about this. Emily Henry is, again, an author that I think every book will be 5 stars from. I have heard some like really early reviews of this one saying that this is her best book yet, and it's about book lovers. So yeah, it's on the list. Again, I'm not going to read the synopsis of this one. I don't want to read the synopsis of this one because it's Emily Henry, and I want to go in and I just want to love it. So I'm not going to give you a synopsis because I don't know a synopsis. It's called Book Lovers and it's Emily Henry. That's it. And then lastly is another author that I've read and loved, and that is Rosie Danan. And her next book is Not Ready to Make Nice. This is not connected to this series at all, but it is a new rom-com that is said to be practical magic, but without the magic. So you are following these B&B owners who have a PI come to their B&B and start investigating a murder, and they are trying to cover something up, and one of them starts to fall in love with the PI. Practical Magic is one of my favorite Halloween movies of all time. Just like a movie that I just really, really love. And so when I heard that it is a Practical Magic without the magic, I knew immediately I needed to read it. And The Intimacy Experiment was a 5-star book for me. So that automatically put Rosie Danan onto like an auto buy and auto read list for me. And so that mixed with this like little pitch synopsis bumped it onto this 5-star prediction list. Again, this doesn't have a cover or release date yet, so hopefully it does come out in 2022. My list might not be totally accurate, but these are the books that I'm most excited about. So that is it for my 5-star predictions. I did pretty well in 2021. I'm very proud of myself for actually completing the entire list. Like, I don't know if I've ever done that for 5-star predictions. Usually I have like one left over where I'm just like, forget it, I'm not reading that. But I read every book this year, and I'm really, really excited for 2022's list. Let me know if you read any of these books and what rating you gave them. And let me know if any of these 2022 books are 5-star predictions for you or like highly anticipated books for you. And let me know what 5-star predictions you have for 2022. If you've done this video, link it down below so I can go give it a watch. And I will catch you all in my next video. Bye.